Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Monica and I love sharing furniture makeovers and DIY home projects. Today, I'm giving this old dresser a fresh new look and turning it into a functional changing table for my son's nursery. This makeover is super beginner friendly, budget friendly, perfect for any moms-to-be who want to add a personal touch to their nursery without breaking the bank. So if you've been thinking about tackling a furniture flip for your little one's room or just want a little inspiration, stick around. Now let's get into it. I started off by removing the wooden pulls, which I thought about reusing to keep this even more budget friendly. However, I did find other pulls online that go a little better with the aesthetic of the nursery. I'm using crud cutter to clean the dresser, and just as I thought, this dresser is going to be a bleeder. If you've never refinished furniture before, bleed through looks like this, and it can happen for two reasons. One is simply the wood tannins that seep through in certain wood species, and the other one can come from stains and oils that have been used to care for and or to clean the furniture. Regardless, a lot of the time you will not see the discoloration caused by bleed through until you top coat. So I do recommend using either a shellac-based primer or an oil-based primer to avoid the frustration and extra work. Ugh, that's pretty gross. I bought this lift to help me load my furniture on and off the bed of my truck, but it came in handy throughout my entire pregnancy. FYI, I do not recommend doing this at 36 weeks pregnant, but if you are, just make sure that you're taking good care of yourself, that you're drinking enough water, and you're taking breaks as needed. Since this is going to be in my son's room and it's a very old piece, I went ahead and replaced the backboard with regular MDF. Unfortunately though, when I removed the backboard, the base support broke, so I had to repair it, but it's nothing crazy. I just used some glue and clamps to put it back together. Once I had it clamped together, I set it aside to dry and I started working on scuff sanding the drawers. I like to use 120 or 180 grit sandpaper to scuff sand my furniture, but feel free to use whichever one you have on hand. The main purpose of scuff sanding is to make sure that the primer and the paint have a better grip, and it prevents peeling or paint from scratching off easily. Next, I started filling in some very superficial scratches with plastic wood filler from DAP. This stuff dries really fast, especially in warm weather, and it also changes color from pink to beige once it dries. As I mentioned earlier, I am using a shellac-based primer for this project to prevent any bleed-through. I am using a plastic container and a foam roller to prime this piece, and all these items I got from the Dollar Tree. If you don't have any of the stores I mentioned available to you, I will give you links so you can order these items from Amazon. So this is day number 2, and I started off by sanding the top to bare wood. The top of this dresser was solid wood, so I started sanding with 120 grit sandpaper, and then I moved my way up to 180 and finally 220. This particular dresser has beautiful wood grain, so I am very pleased with my decision to not paint it. I attached a foam pad to my orbital sander to get those round edges, and then I began the process of covering the top. I always tape the edges first, and then I cut the paper to size. Sometimes the edges of your paper will lift, but the initial tape underneath it will protect the edge from getting any paint on it. As you can see, prep work is about 80% of the work, but if you do it well, you'll end up with amazing results. Woohoo! Finally time to paint. I am misting the surface and loading a small amount of paint to my brush to make sure I don't get any brush strokes. If you want to recreate the same look, I used Grecian Garland by Behr, but I got it in their chalk decorative paint. So as of me filming this video, I am 36 weeks pregnant, but by the time you get to watch it, my baby boy is a week shy of being 11 months old. So I'm going to show you the condition of this dresser almost a year later. Just wait until the end. For all my boy mamas out there, you know what happens on a regular basis when you're changing a diaper. So needless to say, the top of this dresser has gotten a fair share of fluids. In total, I did 2 full coats of paint and I only used about 1/4 of a quart of paint, so I have more than enough paint for other projects. While the paint is drying, I went ahead and prepped a paint wash so that I can neutralize some of the red and orange tones. For this, I use Algonquin by Fusion Mineral Paint, and this is a 1 part paint to 3 parts water, and I do recommend you use a wide sponge applicator so that you can get even coverage. Once that dried, I went ahead and started applying a glazing stain in the tone Java. This is a very newbie-friendly product, but you want to make sure that you're in the shade when applying it, otherwise it will dry too fast and it will look blotchy. Again, I'm using a sponge applicator and I'm making sure it's well saturated. I worked in sections to make sure the glaze doesn't dry up on me, and I'm just using a blue shop paper towel, and notice I folded it neatly so I have a smooth surface rather than scrunching it on my hand and wiping it that way. I do this so I don't leave any glaze smudged in a weird pattern. Lastly, I use a dried white brush to smooth out the remaining stain and I wiped it back on a paper towel.
Very good.
I used a fine grit foam pad to sand before adding my second coat of poly in order to get that buttery smooth finish, and I ended up doing 2 full coats of poly on the body of the dresser and 3 on top. If you're interested in knowing the cost for this makeover, I paid $0 for the solid wood dresser as it was a marketplace find and it was for free. Between the primer, paint, glazing stain, poly, hardware, and miscellaneous items like sanding paper, wood filler, and brushes, I paid about $60. Now keep in mind that a dresser like this sells for about $400 and it's most likely made out of MDF, which there's nothing wrong with that, but a solid wood piece of furniture will last a lot longer than MDF. And that's it, friends. I am so happy with how this dresser turned changing table turned out. It's functional, budget friendly, and now it has a very special little story behind it. If you're an expecting mama or just love a good DIY project, I hope this gave you some inspiration and the confidence to try something similar. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful and subscribe if you want to see more furniture flips and budget-friendly DIYs. If you've done something like this for your little ones, I love to hear about it in the comments. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.